Yeah, thank you for having a call today, Mr. Pan. I'm very glad to speak with you this moment. So I want to know more about your company's service details, privacy one.
Yep.
So please give a brief introduction of the solution. They also your solution advantage the specific outstanding points. So please share with me that.
Yeah, and thank you for having me and having Price One here in the interview. So Privacy One, by the way, Xuan, my name is, and we together with a number of other people founded a company called Privacy One, based in Stockholm. And the company idea, the idea of the company behind the company is that we want to help business. Small or big, doesn't matter, to take the pain out of their data compliance work and data security work. So we have built an infrastructure, a technology solution to help you take your business from non-data compliant to data compliant with one package service, and very easy to use and very easy to implement. And we have implemented the best guiding principles from GDPR and CCPA to make sure that the most valuable assets, that's your customer data, is secure and compliant. And you should take you should focus, you as a business should focus on using the data instead of in the fear of violating the laws or there's security issues of using the data. So that's the idea. And we have built the solution in the way that we can protect your data in 4 areas. That's your data, the lawfulness of using the data, the data transparency and accountability, data security, and privacy management. All 4 areas that we can help you to fulfill.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds amazing. Yeah, I first glanced your service. This is the very supportive for all the people who is concerned about the data privacy, because in Japan is started the new direction of data privacy law. So this kind of service is necessary for Asian market as well. So yeah, this interview will help all the listeners how it actually happened. The foreign country like in Europe, in California, you are very well experienced. So yeah, that's very good. The next question is I think that you are very well data protection experience. So you have been working on the Spotify as a data protection law. So I want to know more about your experience. The first question is, how did you work for the data protection at your previous company? I'm very happy to be share within your experiences.
Good you mentioned this. I think I'm going to go as much detail I can without disclosing too much secret or confidential information, because that's my previous employment.
Okay.
As you mentioned, I worked at Spotify before I founded a Privacy One for about 5 years. And in the last 2 years I worked at Spotify, me together with other people started this data privacy compliance squad. It's called 403. It's very interesting, forbidden. That's a HTTP status code. So basically, we started from before Spotify invested into dedicated teams. We already had security solutions and other solutions to protect data privacy. That's for sure, but not on the same standard where GDPR or CCPA requires your corporates actually are doing. So there's a lot of room to be improved. That's why Spotify invested in us together with, I think, 10 other teams. They are, roughly 3 of the teams are full-time, even sometimes 4. exclusively working with privacy issues from different areas. Some are access control, some are data pseudonymization, some are data collection, and so on. And another 5 or 10 different teams are collaborating with us to actually get the whole solution implemented into their squad, and so on and so forth. So yes, so we spent almost 2 years. When I stayed, that was almost a year and a half time, and then I left the company. The squad is still there working on a lot of new things and new challenges. And that's why it triggers me thinking that, it's a lot of money invested into Spotify, protecting user privacy, that's good, but it should not be reinvented the view. Every company does that. That's too much work and too much money put into this. So that's why I quit the job and started the Private One, try to build this into a service and into a generic solution. So every business, especially small ones, can benefit from that. And big ones, doesn't matter if they have built something in-house or they can still piggyback on our core technology and on the transparency if this solution is provided from a third party instead of from the building house solution. For example, Facebook has been under scrutiny of data regulations and different kind of lawsuits. I mean, people simply don't trust because you have collected too much data. And if it's a third-party transparent solution, you gain more trust from your customer in your brand. So that's also the idea. And of course, if you want to talk about full transparency, the source code in the future might not be maintained by a third party, may be maintained by a community. If you have a Facebook level or Toyota level of company joining us, it has to be a open source solution somehow and maintained by all the collaborators. So that's back to your Collaborate. So that's a really good initiative. So maybe that's the future of this community, like international, not just in Japan, but also elsewhere in the world. So everyone can put in their smart ideas and a great solution into it, and we can collaborate together.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So that's very informative. Then also, I'm also the startups, then small companies are worried about the data protection, how we can cover is enough. So that's why your solution is the very best to fit all the SME who needs the help in Japan as well. So I'm personally wondering the before and after the GDPR, when the executed, so what kind of happens for all the companies before the GDPR, after GDPR, what the critical change in them?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question because it's not us, but Capgemini has done this research regarding this, around this question. But they only did this research in 1,100 corporates in that report. All big ones like $1 million, tens of million, $1 billion, revenues companies. And so they have done this research in, I think, across 8 different sectors, 10 different countries. Twice. The first time was in, as you said, before GDPR, prior to GDPR was taking place, and the second time was 1 year after GDPR was in place. That's 2019. So I think they didn't mention the money, how much investment they put in, but they mentioned the confidence level. How much do you think you're confident that your business, your corporate is compliant? And the number was quite high in 2018, like 70% or 80%, really high level. But 1 year later, the number has been halved and dropped down to the floor, like 20, 30%. So that shows the gap. And it also shows this is a continuous effort. So it's not like a GDPR has been put in place and then we are done and we don't need to talk. And new technology are being developed, new way of thinking, new way of analyzing data are being developed. So you really have to think this is a continuous effort for your business to invest more time and more money sometimes to actually deal with security issues and privacy issues. And that's why, and also there's new laws coming out, right? There's forthcoming regulations, and there's a change of regulation from GDPR maybe to e-privacy and so on. And that's a challenge from a corporate. You don't want to reinvent the wheel from the first page. You don't want to reinvest, in this recurring thing. So that's why not like doing upsell for privacy one, but for those all the reg tech companies, including yours, that's a good unique point, so that you can solve the problem as a service. All the business can subscribe, and then they don't need to worry about the change in the law or a new technology, because the middle layer will solve all that problem for them.
Okay, yeah, that's also the very important to change the behavior, the before and after the law is become strict. Then Japan is not experienced data protections, so we will we see this kind of the change. So that's why we need to be well prepared for running like Europe and US. So that's why a very good approach that you have spoken. So my next question is, I think the workflow is also very changed since the new rule is coming. Now we are talking about some IT division in Japanese companies, but this is before the new data protection rule is coming. So I want to know about the GDPR before and afters. So what kind of the workflow is being changed since the rule is coming?
Yeah, many things have changed. Like let's do a brief overview level of this.
Sure.
So basically, you need to have organizational changes. You need to have technology changes in your design. You have to have coding changes in the best practice, where you implement the good general principles from GDPR or from other recommendations from ISO and so on. So let's say organizational changes. For example, GDPR requires a role called a data protection officer, DPO. So you have to, because this is for accountability, right? You have to have someone accountable for your business, and within, from your business to supervisor authorities or to other businesses. And within your business, you should have someone held accountable for coming up with the right solution, right policy, right principles to guide all the tech teams, marketing campaign team, sales team to do the right thing. So that's also a change. That's the main change for your organization. And of course, there's always technology change. Before, if you are coding or from a product design point of view, you are designing something, some good practice already in place in some of the businesses like Spotify. They consider using as little personal data as possible. But GDPR emphasized, enforce a lot of good practice like data minimization, data storage limitation, strong binding of your data processing purposes. That's all implemented, and you need to implement that into your technology. So we, for example, Privacy One have a training program for a series of training to teach businesses from small or big to how to implement those good principles into your business, into your technology, into your product design. And that's something you need to think of. And also GDPR actually try to promote a way of thinking or way of designing your business, sorry, called privacy by design and privacy by default. So that's two things. Privacy by default, that basically means also many things. By default, you should have the privacy settings enforced and let user opt in if they, voluntarily want to give you more data. So the privacy setting should be the default. That's one thing. And also that also means by privacy, the GDPR, that you have to have a strong binding of your data processing purposes. Privacy by design, on the other hand, means you should, at early stage, incorporate privacy into the design of your product. So that's also what Privacy One is good at in our training programs, because there's a huge gap. If your business, don't understand how to incorporate that into the design of the product, there's huge cost if you do that. I mean, not just the tickets you get from the regulators if they start to scrutinize your business, but also cost. If you decide to do something at a later stage, you have hundreds of legacy systems running there, and that's a big problem. So it's good that you start from privacy by design in the fresh of designing your system and to do this at early stage. And I want to emphasize this also. It also means one thing, at least from my side, is you want to do privacy protection proactively, not reactively. So the law is more like a way of reaction. So if something happens, you get the fine. If something happens, you need to do this. But rather, we want our clients to do proactive implementation of privacy. So that's good for their brand, protecting the data, making sure it's secure. So that's also something part of the privacy by design in our mind. So that's all the changes. There's many things we can talk about, but we can leave that for maybe next time.
Yeah, when it comes to consider the workflows, the operation, maybe it takes many costs, the spending, the initial, even the small companies need to collect a lot of the data for the business. They have to care about the future investment. So maybe the new companies, they are big or small, maybe it's different for the spending, but so how much is the budget is in average or ideal for free coverage in the space of the new data workflow, the compliance?
Well, I don't think I have an insight of the detailed numbers. For that, we have to rely on market research from those big, big four or Capgemini. We can read through the report again. Maybe they mentioned the budget as well. But I think for big companies, I know, I'm not sure you can release those in your interview notes, but for Google, Microsoft, I know they spend thousands of employees, just dedicated employees on solving privacy issues. For Spotify, it's tens of teams solving the issue, and it costs a lot. For small businesses, the problem is a lot of them are taking risks. So they, especially for startups, I think I've seen a lot of them not doing anything, and all the things they thought about doing is a privacy policy. But that's the issue. Like privacy policy, that's just part of the transparency, data transparency, which is part of GDPR or data regulation. So it's one small fractional thing you have to do when it comes to data protection. And it doesn't give you any defensible position. That's what we want our clients to have. So I've seen businesses not investing that much and failed, and they get either the problem from bottom up, like their consumer can file lawsuits against them, and then they go into the panic mode. Okay, we have to do something. It's really costly. We'll come to that state. The requirements also coming from your partner. So if you are a business to business, B2B business, and we have our clients that came to talk to us because their business partner or their business client require them to have privacy, by design in their business. So and when you start talking about B2B, selling this, I don't know, to a large bank or a utility company, like an electricity company, I mean, you have to, doesn't matter you're small, big, you have to have privacy already incorporated in your business so that your client can be confident buying your solution. And over time, I've seen medium-sized company or small companies don't have them, and they are being asked by those big clients. So they come to us for help, like understanding, do we need to do anything transformation in our technology, and do we need to integrate this privacy solution, and so on. So yes, so I think a lot of time and money spent by big enterprise, but still there's trouble and room to improve. Small business is not doing really well in terms of data protection. And that's why I think PriceOne, together with your company and many others in this industry, should offer great help to remove the hurdle for them to be onboarded for privacy by design kind of thinking.
Yeah, I understand. For the SME especially, it's very hard to maintain at every cost. So your technology, the solution is very helpful to fully coverage the initial. They also the rotation to improve the compliance, the guidelines, which is a very important point.
Yeah, okay. Good mention that. Basically, we want to offer one package that covers the most spectrum of data privacy and data security with a very affordable price for small businesses. So we think PriceOne should by default and should be cheap or affordable at least.
Okay. So let's move on to the next topic. So I'm gonna talk with you about the data protection landscape. So especially the market. So there is some startups is coming up for the privacy space, the data protection. Like OneTrust is become unicorns companies last year. There's some other data protection. The startups is evolved this moment. So do you think there is a lot of the startups is coming out in Europe for the GDPR right now?
I think quite some. Like when we talk to investors, they even tell us more. Like because we are just seeing those are visible to us. There's a lot of still, coming ones and coming forces we don't even see. Or not out there in the market, which is probably spotted by investors. So investors also tell us there's a lot of them. And the big ones, as you mentioned, there's OneTrust, TrustArc, Big ID. I think that's the big three. And of course, you have the traditional business from Cisco, IBM. They all offer different services. And if you talk about data scrutiny or data inspection, you have always a big four to even do the accountability check or the compliance check. So it's from different angles. And startups, yes, in Europeans, there's some in Germany that I've seen, some in Netherlands, Sweden as well, us included. And the problem I think there's problem for both the big side and the big players and the small newcomers. And that's where it makes PriceOne very unique. For the newcomers, they try to, so one niche problem within this landscape. Say, there's a German company that solves only database pseudonymization. There's a startup or it's like already medium-sized business from Sweden that solves only the DPIA problem and data inventory, build up the data inventory problem. And there's a big, not so big, but a strong newcomer from the US that solves only the data compliance document problem. But the thing is, when you talk about data compliance, you really want to have a one basket solution that solves most of the problem, at least, or all the problem ideally. And that's, the hope that all the big ones like OneTrust can offer you. But then the problem comes, they are really pricey. So if you look at their price tag, they charge by feature. And I mean, that's their business model. Basically, so that they can survive. One feature, one component, they charge the same price as what we offer as one package. So what we want to do is to offer you the best solution to help you make your business compliant and secure with one price tag. That's our, belief, because we think this is by default. You should have all the things. We really should make it still affordable so that the small businesses can just tag along and always use it by default. So that's what we think the landscape is.
I see. So is there any specific, like the venture capital who focuses on the privacy data protection now? Of course, in Europe, in the United States, in San Francisco has a lot of the venture capital is interested in the topics. So what kind of the venture capital or fundraise the money is coming through in the space?
I think I don't have a good answer for that, but good you mentioned that in Silicon Valley, for example, they have really good focus on data privacy. For example, OneTrust got a Series B funding within 7 months from the apart from their Series A funding, but they were already big before they got the Series A. So now they are $2.7 billion valuation already. In Europe, at least in Sweden, I haven't seen those strong focus from venture capitals. Everyone talks about data security, data privacy, but nobody is that strong focus. So that's really strict. Like the regulation first came out from Europe, but it's the US investor are more laser focused on investing in startups. So that's something I think is sad because you haven't seen a big reg tech or those technology company coming out from Europe landscape. Is more US based businesses. I think we should be part of it and try to change it. We try to prove that our solution works really well with clients both big and small, with a full spectrum and with the best offering, the most affordable price, hopefully to attract more investors in the future to grow really organically with more clients and So I haven't seen much like very focused venture capitals from the Europe targeting those startups.
I understand. Yeah, the Asian market is still, we haven't seen any specific venture capital or corporate company who aggressively to support these activities. But the rule is coming. Maybe a lot of the enterprises also is necessary to go forward. So in accordance, a lot of the startups is coming out. So this kind of the trend will be happens in the next decade. So we have to investigate what kind of the startup scene will be changed to the new rules. Yeah, that's very interesting point. So I wanted to move to the next decades or 5 years from the 2020s. So I think the GDPR is the move to the mature stage now. Since they started 2 years ago, a lot of the investigation is coming. That like the GDPR is a very the focusing on the local status. I saw the very interesting use case in Poland. Even the public school, they are investigated as data abusement. So
in Sweden, right? You mean?
Yeah. So how do you envision in 2020 what will be happening at GDPR from your perspective?
So interestingly, that you mentioned this first ticket that issued to not a private sector but to a school, and also that's part of GDPR. GDPR applies to not just even it applies to individuals. If you read through the law and come to our training program, we can teach you natural person, public agencies, government agencies, and private sector all fall into the obligation of complying to GDPR or data protection. The first ticket, as you mentioned, is a school. They try to use a facial identity for scanning the students. Of course, that's really sensitive data. According to GDPR, there's a special data categories in one article talking about, in general, you should not process personal data. That's this category. That includes your genetic information, facial identity, I think falls into that. blood result, or sexual orientation, religious, and so on and so forth, except you have something that you have to fulfill to be able to process those information. And apparently that school didn't have those in place, so that's why they get the ticket. So that's the huge gap which we see, and also huge opportunity for us and many other startups, I think, because the awareness is there. You need to do something about data protection, and the awareness of getting the fine from the regulator is also there, but the knowledge is not there. Nobody, a lot of business or schools or public agencies, they don't know how do you do the best practice. And that's why Price One is standing on the frontier of this, teaching everyone. We just rolled out this training program to bridge the gap. What are the regulations? First, you need to understand, not just understand, there's some more fancy word in GDPR. You need to understand what are the obligations from, if you're a data processor, if you are a data controller, and what do you need to do in practice, and to bridge that gap. So that's an opportunity for us, and I think that's a lot of improvements that needs to be done from businesses.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So I think a lot of outside Europe or outside America company is they're thinking about the free compliance with the data protection rule. But for us, which is not easy because your cultures or concept is very different from other countries. So from a perspective, what kind of advices you provided for the Asian or other countries, the enterprise who wants to comply with the data protections?
Yes, so it's very true that the culture is different, and the local regulation is also different. So first, we need to talk about the GDPR scope. What does it apply to? It applies to all the establishment that you have, for example, a business within EU. Then you have to do that, and it also touches if you have your system, even though your business is not established within the member states, but you still have data collected and being processed from European citizens, then you still need to be applying good practices and complying to this rule or this regulation. So, but then it comes to another question: what if there's a conflicting law, not necessarily outside the EU regulation, but also within? In Sweden, you have this freedom of press, freedom of research act. We basically talk about those also in our training program. When there's a conflicting law, how do you do that? How do you implement? So is it okay to publish my home address in the same time protecting our privacy, citizens' privacy? Yes, there's an answer. So we cannot go into details on how to do that, but that's some thinking you need to have that. You need to combine a good regulation, but that doesn't rule everything out. You still have to combine that knowledge with your local regulations. Either is in Sweden or in Japan or in some other countries, and all the regulations like a financial regulation, like anti-money laundering, and so on, bookkeeping regulations. So, and there's a good practice how you do that. So it's a very big topic and very complex. I don't think we can have time to cover everything.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you it was a very great approach that you have mentioned about. So lastly, please give a message for the Japanese company who wants to comply with the GDPR, because you are providing the training service or training concept to teach, educate the enterprise, be easily to start the new data protection. So you have any message for them, please share with me that.
Yeah, so very simple message: implement privacy by design and by default. That's what's been written in GDPR. And there's a lot of meaning, underneath those empty words. You need to implement the best practice. You need to apply the general principle, the 7 general principle from GDPR and from other regulations as well, to provide transparency, to give the accountability internally, externally to auditors, to protect data security, and to automate data privacy management, and to limit your data usage, to bind your data for specific purposes. So those are the good practices that you need to do. Of course, if you want to buy our off-the-shelf solution, Priceline already have all that good principles built into a technology that you need to, you can just simply integrate with your existing tech solution. Or you have to understand that with all that requirements in a good level, maybe from our training program, and map that into technology, to product design, to market campaign, how you launch that, to risk analysis, how you do DPIA. We have a series of a case study, how to walk you take your hands and walk step by step, how you do that in your corporates. Exactly what you mentioned. What are the changes you need to apply in your corporate? So we have case study for you to learn if you come to our course. Yeah, so there's a lot of good practices that you need to apply, and don't invent the wheel. That's reinvent the wheel. That's my advice. So it's really costly if you do that. There's a lot of mistakes we have already taken and built that into a technology or service. Use as much as possible already available in the market, either commercially or good practices from open source project and so on, or from a service like us. So yeah, it's quite simple. Use privacy by design, by default paradigm, and learn how to do that either from yourself or from a training program like what we offer, and buy services that you can cover the most spectrum of your compliance work and secure your data, because that's the most valuable data asset of your business.
Yeah, that's great advice. For us, it's the very challenging situation now. A lot of the companies are struggling whether the GDPR is coming or how we can be prevented, how many costs, how many compliances, how many requests we have to cover. So this is a very knowledgeable approach. You're training things. So yeah, thank you for your kindness to having a talk like this for the interviews. I will try to share this knowledge to my audiences, listeners, who needs the help from your insight. Thank you for the time.
Thank you for having us. Just one small comment for exactly what you just said, like as a wrap up of our conversation. Sure. Like our first training program is we called Data Privacy 101. It's exactly to answer what you just commented, to understand what applies, what are the scope, and does it even matter to Japanese corporates, and what you need to do. So this training is really super good. We got super good feedback from our trainees that have been through this program. Like each time we've done that, we ask them what are the ratings you want to rate this program and this training, 0 to 10. And we got a really good feedback, like 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10. And so that's, we get you all the question out of your mind once you go through those trainings.
Okay, yeah. Thank you for the presentation, and let's keep it updated.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.